Hi, how are you? Yesterday evening I went to see the movie Gladiator 2 with my husband, and I felt a little bit underestimated. There were a few mistakes in the movies that I, just for the fun of it, like to point out. So there was this battle in the start that the Romans again came and conquered another country, another region. And of course there were bodies because Romans were cruel, and there were bodies in land, and there was bodies in the sea. And yeah, those bodies were floating at the sea with their armors made from metal. I don't think so. Bodies with a heavy metal armor don't float. They go to the bottom. They just do. It's the basic thing with the gravity. So that was the first gross mistake. Then the Romans were very cruel, and they piled the bodies in the land, and then they set them on fire, and they just like went like this. Bodies don't burn. They just don't burn if you don't have anything to help the burning. So that was a mistake number 2. Then there was some hint of mistake, because there were of course the local people who were mourning about the death and screaming and doing the similar kind of motions that people who live in Allah do. But Muhammad was born 500 years later, so it was a little bit premature to show people worshipping Allah. But that was only a hint, so I don't count it a full mistake, but it's like half a mistake. So we are in 2 mistakes. Then this main character is, of course, brought to Rome, and to this Denzel Washington character, who is this main man of gladiators. He puts up fights and buys the fighters and that sort of things. And he has this lavish clothes and jewelry, and he has a necklace with a lock behind. This is gross mistake number 3. Those locks weren't invented yet. They were invented in 1800s. It's a small thing, but it's very annoying and very much underestimating the viewer. Well, then this main character, this Denzel Washington, watches the main man and some other men fight. And after the fight, he says, "Interesting, hose him and bring him back to me." Hose him? Hoses wasn't invented yet. There were only these kind of pipes that were made of animal intestines, and they didn't hold up pressure. They were just to gently pouring water from one place to another. So he could have been bathed or showered, but not hosed. So main mistake number 4. And then the movie continues, and of course there is this normal mistakes, like people get bruises and cuts, and they are beating half conscience, and then they are the next day just fresh and no bruises and no infections and no fever and no nothing. But that's the usual mistake. I have grown to accept that, because they don't want to see these main characters with horrible faces all the time. That wouldn't be very pretty for the viewer. But then the story continues, and then there is this Lucilla, the daughter of Mark Antonius, that was an actual historic character, and she also is, of course, clothed very, very elegantly. But when the movie goes on, he has this kind of a lace belt around her waist. It's very beautiful, of course, but lace was invented in 1400s. So that was gross mistake number 5. There wasn't no lace. It was way too complicated. Even the basic seams were somehow like avoided in any course because they were so difficult to make. People would just wrap something around them rather than use scenes. But lace, definitely not. Well, then there are, of course, these were the 5 like gross mistakes at this first sight that I feel that is really underestimating the viewer and is somehow like, if you make a movie about the historical scene, you have to be at least to some point true to the scene. You cannot add a wristwatch to a middle-aged movie. It's just not, you are not supposed to do that. And you are not supposed to underestimate the viewer, that they don't know, that they don't see, that they don't notice. I notice these kind of things, and I'm sure if I would have looked it through again, I would maybe possibly find more. But even in a movie theater, with all the people and with all the noise and the movie just continuing and no breaks, and these are like gross mistakes. But of course there were more of these half mistakes, like the fact that the twin emperors and the man that was like a host in gladiator games, they were extremely pale in Italian sun or in the Roman sun. If you have ever been in Italy, you know that you don't stay white if you even like look, if you are very moderate outside, but you still change color. And you change color if you have been there since you were a child. Nobody keeps you inside 24 hours a day since you were born. Or even if maybe these 2 twin emperors, but the host of the gladiator games is not the same. It's not the same. He is a normal person. So it was, of course, theatrical to show them extremely pale and gayish, but it was still annoying to my view. And those red splotches in the cheeks, I think that those came from the French courts in 1700s, but not in the Roman times, not like that. Only courtesans made up their faces, not normal Roman persons, not Roman women or let alone men. But that was, of course, this kind of a half mistake, but not full mistake. Well, the whole movie, the plot was somehow plausible. It was a nice plot, but not overly intriguing, not overly complicated, not something that you can rely somehow get in contact with. The main character, I was really like disappointed. He was somehow not really masculine, not very charismatic, not like he should have been playing this second character to the previous, the gladiator number 1, and he just didn't live up to it at all. He was a small, like child-looking man with very poor like posture, and it was not good. And the last mistake, the last gross mistake in this movie was the ending. So if you want to go watch the movie and do you not want to know, if you want to go and watch the movie and you don't want to know how it ends, then you might skip this part. But in the end, this main character is talking to 2 rivalry armies and says that we have seen enough blood and enough death that we should not fight, but to like continue in peace and bring peace and order to Roman people. And everyone was, yeah, we do that. Well, it was a nice ending for people, so there is peace and harmony in the world. But this movie is from Roman times. And whenever Caesar falls, there is somebody that wants to take his place. There is somebody in the succession of throne. So these like main men from the army, they would have had their own agenda. They wouldn't have just said that, okay, let's stop fighting and we are all out of business, we are soldiers. No, they would have fought to the bitter end. They would just have calculated that who is going to win and who is going to be the next emperor. And that's the ending that would have been in this movie, like every other from the Roman times that have been made. But this was like totally unrealistic. So that was mistake number 6, I think. And of course there was this minor mistake that annoyed me from the start, which was that there were man and wife like putting armors and going to war. Of course there has been women warriors throughout the history. There are different kind of women. But if some people do that, send their both wives and husbands to the war, they are likely to extinct because nobody is taking care of the children. And to be able to survive as a group, you have to make sure that the children survive. And that was some kind of mistake. Number 7, or not a cruel mistake, but just a line of thought. But if you want to watch that movie, it's entertaining, not Casablanca, not anything like that, but entertaining movie nevertheless. And of course the characters of Lucilla and characters of this Denzel Washington type, and those were very well acted, and they are great actors. But overall, I don't like these mistakes in movies. I don't want to be underestimated as a basic like civil. But, well, I meant to just say a few words of the movie Gladiator, and now it's a little bit more than a few words. I hope you have a good time if you go and see the movie. I hope you have a great day. I see you soon. Goodbye.